Welcome to our deep dive, you guys, into the life and work of Jorge Luis Borges.
Yes.
We've
Big one.
we've got a fascinating mix of material for you today. So
Absolutely. Get ready.
we've got excerpts from his
We do.
mind-bending fiction.
Yeah.
We've got insights from his Wikipedia page
yeah.
and some scholarly commentary is going to help us connect the dots.
Yeah, help ground us a little bit, right?
Yeah.
A little bit.
So get ready to explore a
Yeah.
world of labyrinths, libraries, and literary illusions.
It's going to be quite a journey.
I think so.
Borges wasn't just a writer.
Right.
He was a librarian,
Oh, yeah.
a scholar, even a poultry and rabbit inspector at one point.
Wait, what?
You heard that right?
Really?
Each of these roles, as we'll see,
I'm intrigued.
is woven into the fabric of his writing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Borges was born in Buenos Aires, but his family moved to Switzerland when he was just a kid.
Yeah, just a young boy.
Imagine the impact of those early years.
Yeah.
Traveling through Europe, soaking up languages
Yeah.
and cultures so different from his Argentine roots.
Right, totally.
It's no wonder he became fluent in several languages. You can practically feel that cosmopolitan influence in his prose.
It's like his mind was a library in the making.
Yeah.
Even before he stepped foot in a real one,
Right.
he devoured the works of philosophers.
Like who?
Like Arthur Schopenhauer.
Okay.
Got lost in the eerie world of Gustav Mehring's The Golem,
Interesting.
and even joined the ultrist
Ouch.
literary movement in Spain.
Okay.
Think avant-garde.
Okay.
Experimental, pushing the boundaries of what literature could be.
The ultraist movement, for those who haven't encountered it,
Yeah,
was a reaction against traditional forms of poetry.
exactly.
They wanted to create something bold, something new, using striking imagery and metaphors to evoke emotions, rather than relying on traditional rhyme and meter.
That's it.
So Borges was already experimenting with form and language from a young age.
Exactly. And speaking of libraries, Borges spent years working as a librarian
Right.
in Buenos Aires, eventually becoming the director of the National Public
I
Library.
did not know that.
Yeah. You can see this experience reflected in stories like The Library of Babel,
Okay.
where he uses the library as a metaphor for the universe itself,
Wow.
filled with infinite knowledge and every possible book.
Like that is such a Borgesian concept.
It is.
Just imagine walking through endless shelves, searching for meaning amongst a vast, chaotic collection of information.
Yeah.
That's the feeling you get from the Library of Babel.
I know. It's incredible.
And it makes me think about how our relationship with information has changed since Borges' time.
Oh, totally.
We're bombarded with data every day
Every day.
on the internet, on our phones.
Yeah.
It can feel overwhelming, almost like we're living in that Borgesian library.
He was ahead of his time in a way.
Totally.
He even said,
What did he say?
all of my literary production from 55 on I carried out here in the National Library, assisted by my secretaries and my dictaphone.
Wow, so he was really in the library.
He was there.
All the time.
All the time, yeah. It wasn't just a job for him, it was a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
A reflection of his own literary universe.
Wow.
But as you pointed out, it also foreshadows the challenges of the information age.
Right.
Something we're all grappling with today.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got this foundation, a childhood steeped in literature
Yeah.
and languages, a deep connection to libraries,
Mm.
and an early fascination with pushing literary boundaries.
He was a rule breaker from the start.
Yeah. So how does this all come together in Borges' unique style?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
His writing is like a puzzle box,
Okay.
full of secret compartments and hidden meanings.
Ooh, I like that.
He blends genres effortlessly,
Okay.
mixing detective fiction with fantasy philosophical essays with ancient myths.
It's almost as if he's playing with our expectations.
Exactly.
Hopefully making us question what a story can be.
Yeah,
Like, is it a detective story or is it actually a meditation on the nature of time?
exactly.
Oh.
And he uses these recurring symbols,
Okay.
labyrinths, mirrors, endless libraries
Ugh.
to explore themes of time, infinity, and the nature of identity.
It's like he's inviting you into a literary game where the rules are constantly shifting.
Exactly. He keeps you on your toes.
For sure.
And his love of obscure references,
Yeah.
fictional books within his stories, adds another layer of complexity.
He's really playing with us.
He is.
Yeah.
He even once said,
Okay, what do you say?
it is a laborious madness and an impoverishing one, the madness of composing vast books. The better way to go about it is to pretend that those books already exist, and offer a summary, a commentary on them.
Wait, so he's writing about books that don't even exist?
He's creating these elaborate literary illusions, blurring the lines between fiction and reality.
Okay, hold on. So you're telling me
Yeah.
I'm reading this book
Uh-huh.
and it's referencing all these other books
Yeah.
that he just made up.
He might have made up. It's
Little.
part of what makes his work so captivating.
The-
He makes you want to go on a literary treasure hunt to see if those books he mentions might actually be hidden somewhere in a dusty corner of a real library.
That's wild.
It is.
Okay, so he's creating this whole
He is.
meta-narrative.
He is.
It's like he's saying,
Yeah.
hey, don't just passively read my stories.
Yeah.
Go out and explore.
Yeah.
Question everything.
Precisely, and within these illusions,
Okay.
he's constantly circling back to these core themes.
Okay, like what?
The passage of time,
Okay.
the power of memory, the elusive nature of self,
Yeah.
the very fabric of reality itself.
These are the big questions that have haunted philosophers for centuries.
They are the big ones.
It's almost like he's using fiction to tackle these age-old mysteries in a way that's both intellectually stimulating
Yes.
and incredibly entertaining.
That's the brilliance of Borges. He's not afraid to grapple with complex ideas, but he does so through stories that are thrilling, suspenseful, and often surprisingly humorous.
It makes me think about how much of our own lives are shaped by the stories we tell ourselves,
Right.
the narratives we create to make sense of the world.
Yeah, we're all storytellers in a way.
Borges seems to be saying, hey, those stories are powerful, but they're also constructions,
Yeah.
illusions.
Illusion.
Don't be afraid to question them, to look beyond the surface.
That's a great point. And speaking of challenging assumptions,
Yeah,
Borges wasn't just an intellectual living in a world of books and ideas.
right.
He was also deeply engaged with the political realities of his time.
Okay.
He was a vocal critic of Juan Perón's regime in Argentina, which, as you can imagine, didn't make him very popular with those in power.
Right. That was a very tumultuous time in
It
Argentina.
was a politically charged time in Argentina.
Right.
Perón was a charismatic leader,
Yeah.
but his policies were controversial, to say the least.
They were
And Borges, never one to shy away from expressing his beliefs,
right.
found himself on the wrong side of the political establishment.
So what happened? Did he get censored, silenced?
Well, not exactly. He was actually dismissed from his beloved library job
Oh, no.
and given the rather absurd title of Inspector of Poultry and Rabbits in the Buenos Aires municipal market.
Seriously, they made him a poultry inspector that's almost too strange to be true.
It sounds like something out of one of his stories, doesn't it?
It really does.
But it was a deliberate attempt to humiliate him,
Right.
to silence his dissenting voice, and his response to this promotion perfectly captures his wit.
What did he say?
When asked about it, he simply said, well, you were on the side of the Allies. What do you expect?
Classic Borges. He refused to be cowed, even when faced with absurd and unjust circumstances. And you can see how these experiences, this clash with political authority,
Well, absolutely.
might have fueled his explorations of power, control, and the dangers of blind obedience in his writing.
For sure, his life experiences definitely seeped into his work. And speaking of challenges, there's another aspect of Borges' life that profoundly shaped his work. His failing eyesight. He became completely blind by the age of 55.
I've heard about this, but it's always struck me as such a cruel twist of fate for a writer, someone who relies so heavily on sight, on reading, on observing the world. How did he cope with such a profound loss?
It's remarkable, really. He didn't let blindness define him. He continued to write, to lecture, to engage with the world. And some scholars even suggest that his blindness, in a way, enhanced his creative powers. It forced him to rely even more heavily on imagination, on memory, on the power of language to create vivid and evocative worlds.
So instead of limiting him, it actually opened up new possibilities. That's amazing.
It is, he even said, blindness is a gift. I have been given back the time that was taken up in seeing.
Wow.
It's a powerful perspective.
It is.
It's a testament to his resilience and his ability to find meaning and even beauty in the face of adversity.
It makes me think about the power of perspective.
Yeah.
How we can choose to see challenges as opportunities for growth, for discovering new strengths within ourselves. And that's a theme that runs throughout Borges' work, isn't it? This idea that our limitations can sometimes lead us to unexpected places, to new ways of seeing the world.
That's a great observation. It's like he's saying, don't be afraid of the darkness of the unknown. There's a whole universe waiting to be explored within your own mind. And this brings us to the heart of what makes Borges so fascinating.
What's that?
His ability to take these grand philosophical concepts and weave them into captivating stories, often with a touch of mystery and suspense. It's like he's inviting us to play a game, to solve a puzzle, while simultaneously pondering the deepest questions of human existence.
So let's dive into some of those stories, shall we? We've got this amazing collection of excerpts, and I'm dying to see how those themes we've been talking about, time, memory, identity, reality, actually play out in his fiction. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with Death in the Compass. It's
Oh.
a detective story on the surface, but it's also a brilliant exploration of obsession symmetry and how our attempts to impose order on the world can sometimes lead us astray.
Ooh, a detective story with a philosophical twist. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
The main character is Eric Lunrot, a detective who becomes fixated on solving a series of seemingly random murders. He believes there's a pattern, a hidden code that he needs to crack. But as he gets deeper into the investigation, he becomes more and more obsessed, more and more convinced that he's on the verge of uncovering some grand truth.
So he's like a detective version of those scholars in the Library of Babel, searching for meaning in a chaotic universe of information.
Exactly. And like those scholars,
Yeah.
he's in danger of getting lost in the labyrinth of his own making. He becomes so focused on the pattern, on the intellectual puzzle, that he blinds himself to the reality of the situation and ultimately walks right into a trap set by the killer.
Wow, so the labyrinth becomes a metaphor for Lunrot's own mind, his own overthinking leading him to his doom.
Exactly.
It's like Borges is warning us about the dangers of intellectual arrogance, of getting so caught up in our own theories that we lose sight of the real world.
It's a cautionary tale for sure. And speaking of labyrinths,
Yeah.
let's not forget the Garden of Forking Paths, one of Borges' most famous stories.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
This one is a mind-bending exploration of time where the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, branching out into infinite possibilities.
Wait, so it's like a multiverse?
Exactly. And it's told through the perspective of Yu Sun, a Chinese spy during World War I, who's on a mission to deliver a secret message to Germany.
Oh, wow.
He's being pursued by Captain Richard Madden, a British intelligence officer, and the way Borges intertwines the spy thriller with the story of Yu Sun's ancestor, Chui Pen, who created a labyrinthine novel that reflects the nature of time itself. It's
Yeah.
just brilliant.
Okay, my mind is already starting to bend a little.
Yeah.
How does this labyrinthine novel work?
Well, in Chui Pen's novel, every decision creates a new branch of time, a new possibility. So instead of a single linear narrative,
Yeah.
you have countless paths all existing simultaneously, and the novel itself becomes a physical representation of this concept with multiple endings, contradictory storylines, and characters who exist in multiple timelines at once.
So it's like Borges is saying that our lives aren't just a single story, but a multitude of stories all happening at the same time, that every choice we make, every path we take, could lead to a completely different outcome.
That's exactly it. It's a very unsettling yet exhilarating thought, isn't it?
It is.
And it speaks to Borges's fascination with the limits of human perception, how our understanding of reality is always incomplete, always filtered through our own individual experiences. And he does all of this with such elegance, such a mastery of language that you're simultaneously swept up in the story and left pondering the profound implications of what you've just read.
It's like he's planting these seeds of ideas in your mind and they keep growing long after you've finished the story. So we've got labyrinth, spies, multiple timelines. What other mind-blowing concepts does he throw at us?
Well, in a story like Funes, His Memory, he takes this exploration of perception to an even more extreme level. Imagine a man who can remember every single detail of his life.
Okay.
Every sight, every sound, every sensation, every thought. That's Ireneo Funes.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I wish I had a memory like that. I'd ace every test, never forget a name.
You might think so, but Borges shows us the dark side of perfect memory. Funes is overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information he retains. He can't generalize. He can't abstract. He's trapped in this endless torrent of sensory data.
Oh, I see. So instead of being a gift, this perfect memory becomes a curse. It's like he's drowning in information, unable to make sense of it all.
Exactly. Funes is a prisoner of his own mind, unable to filter out the noise, unable to see the forest for the trees, and it makes you realize that forgetting is just as important as remembering that our ability to select and prioritize information is crucial for making sense of the world.
It's like those algorithms that try to personalize our online experiences, feeding us only the information they think we want to see it, can create a bubble, a limited perspective, where we miss out on the richness and complexity of the world outside our own filtered feed.
That's a brilliant connection. Borges, even without knowing about the internet, seems to have foreseen the dangers of information overload, of losing ourselves in a sea of data. And it's not just about the quantity of information,
Yeah.
it's also about how we interpret it, how we create meaning from it.
Okay.
And this brings us to another recurring theme in Borges's work,
What's that?
the nature of identity.
Okay, so we've got time as a labyrinth memory,
Yeah.
and both a blessing and a curse. And now we're delving into the mysteries of identity.
We are.
This is getting deep.
It is. His characters are often grappling with questions of who they are, what makes them unique, how much of their identity is shaped by memory, by experience, by the stories they tell themselves, like in the Circular Ruins, where a man dreams another being into existence only to discover that he himself is also someone else's dream. It's a mind-bending exploration of the nature of reality, but it also raises profound questions about what it means to be an individual, a self.
Well, that's
Yeah.
heavy stuff. It's like those Russian nesting dolls where you open one to find another
Yeah.
and another, and you never quite reach the center, the true essence of the thing.
That's a perfect analogy for Borges's exploration of identity. He peels away layers of perception, memory, and even reality itself, leaving you questioning the very foundation of what we consider self.
And he doesn't shy away from playing with these ideas in a very personal way, does he?
He doesn't.
I'm thinking of that story, Borges and I, where he literally splits himself into two characters.
Yeah.
The public figure of Borges, the writer,
Yeah.
and the private, more introspective I, who observes and comments on this public persona.
It's a fascinating piece, almost
Yeah.
like he's having a conversation with himself,
Right.
questioning which one is the real Borges. It makes you think about the masks we all wear, the different roles we play in our lives,
Right.
and how those roles shape our sense of self.
It's like we're all made up of these multiple selves, these fragmented identities that are constantly interacting, but sometimes even contradicting each other. And Borges, with his playful philosophical approach, seems to be saying, hey, that's okay. Embrace the complexity, the mystery of it all.
Exactly. And that's what makes his work so enduring. He's not providing easy answers or tidy solutions.
Right.
He's opening up new avenues of thought, new ways of seeing the world and ourselves. He's inviting us to participate in the ongoing conversation about what it means to be human.
So we've journeyed through labyrinths of time, explored the limits of memory, confronted the unsettling nature of identity, and even questioned the very fabric of reality itself, all guided by the masterful storytelling of Jorge Luis Borges. It's been quite a ride.
And it's a journey that doesn't end here. Borges' work continues to ripple outward, influencing writers, artists, filmmakers, even philosophers. His fingerprints are all over contemporary culture, even if people aren't always aware of it.
So what's his lasting legacy? How does a writer who loved labyrinths and invented worlds continue to shape how we see things today?
Well, think about the rise of magical realism, for example. Authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Isabel Allende, Salman Rushdie, they all owe a debt to Borges' playful blurring of the lines between the real and the fantastical in. He paved the way for them to create worlds where dreams and myths and everyday life all coexist.
It's like he gave them permission to break the rules, to unleash their imaginations and create something truly unique and captivating.
Exactly. And it's not just literature. Filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, with his mind-bending films like Inception and Interstellar, have clearly been influenced by Borges' exploration of time perception and the nature of reality. Even video game designers who create these immersive virtual worlds are tapping into the Borgesian idea of creating spaces where the rules of logic and physics can be bent and broken.
It's fascinating to think about how these ideas that Borges was exploring decades ago are now finding new life in these different forms of media.
Absolutely. And then there's the impact on how we think about knowledge itself.
Yeah.
Borges, the librarian, the lover of books,
Right.
he foresaw the challenges of information overload in the digital age. His Library of Babel, with its endless shelves of books containing every possible combination of letters, feels almost prophetic in the age of the internet, where we're bombarded with an overwhelming amount of data every day.
It's almost like he was warning us about the dangers of getting lost in this sea of information, of losing sight of the meaning, the human connection that gives knowledge its value.
It's a challenge we're still grappling with today.
For sure.
How do we navigate this vast digital landscape?
Right.
How do we discern truth from falsehood? How do we make meaning out of the sheer volume of data that's constantly flowing through our lives?
And amidst all this information, amidst all the noise and distractions, Borges reminds us of the power of stories.
Yeah.
Stories to make sense of the world, to explore the depths of human experience, to connect with each other across time and space.
He's a writer who continues to teach us how to think, How to question how to see the world with fresh eyes.
Yes.
He's a guide through the labyrinth of ideas, a master of illusion and insight.
So, as we conclude our deep dive into the world of Jorge Luis Borges, I think it's fitting to end with a thought from the man himself, something for you to ponder, to carry with you as you continue your own exploration of this fascinating writer and the questions he raises. Borges once said, "I have always imagined that paradise will be a kind of library."
What a beautiful sentiment.
It is.
And it speaks to the enduring power of literature, the way it can transport us to other worlds, expand our horizons, and connect us to something larger than ourselves.